Story 1. I was like 25 when I found out the jugs of washer fluid outside the gas station aren't free. I was walking out of the gas station with a buddy one day, grabbed a jug of washer fluid, and he asked me, "Did you just steal that?" And I was like, "No, dude, it's free." It's not. I stole washer fluid for nearly 10 years of driving and no one ever said anything to me about it. Story 2. I was in my late 30s when it occurred to me that, for attention, is a perfectly valid motivation for people to do things, which led to the realization that attention is a form of social currency. At that point, I wished somebody had explained this truly basic thing to me when I was young and single. Story 3. It took me way too long to realize that you could just not answer a question. I always felt the need to either tell what I know or lie. As I got older, lies felt tedious, so if you asked me, you would probably get my version of the truth. Sometimes this would lead to ugly truths being told. After watching politicians and actually paying attention to what they say, I realized you never have to answer the question that was asked of you. Listen to any reporter interview any politician. The reporter will ask a question, then the politician will just start talking about whatever they want to talk about. If they're nice, they will start with the question and lean into what they want to say. This isn't a polite thing to do, though, so I wouldn't recommend doing it to anyone you care about. Story 4. I'm Norwegian and was at least 30 before I realized that the tomatoes crossing the road schoolyard joke, 2 tomatoes cross the road, one gets run over, the other says, "Come on, catch up," has, in what I assume is the original English, a punchline. Well, for a schoolyard joke anyway. Norwegian kids tell the same joke, but there's no catch-up ketchup pun in Norwegian, so they just tell a joke where the squashed tomato is now ketchup. At some point, a kid who knew enough English to have heard the joke, but not enough for the pun, told it to younger kids, who assumed it was funny because an older kid was telling it, and it has been repeated between children for generations. Story 5. I'm 50-ish. For the last couple years, I kept feeling that I'm getting close to retirement, and I'm only going to have a few years to do what I want. Then I realized I could only be halfway there. What if I live till I'm 90? That's 40 more years. I have time to do absolutely anything I want to. It was just this crazy sort of epiphany that went, "You're looking at this all wrong. Life isn't over at 60 or 65. You still have a lot of time." Story 6. I learned where pulling out all the stops came from a couple of years ago, watching a documentary on Interstellar's music. It's from playing organs. Air is blown through the organ's pipes to play notes, and you have stops in there if you don't want a particular pipe to play. So when you pull out all the stops, you get all the pipes playing. Story 7. That sometimes things are just the way they are. You can't change the situation you're in, only your actions and your emotions and how you react to them. I guess I realized that certain situations sometimes feel unfair or are not favorable to your needs, and you have to find happiness in the best way you can and live your life. Sometimes you gotta make sacrifices because that's the only option. Story 8. You can't fix people that much. Even if they go along with wanting to change, the change will be very tiny and extremely slow, or not at all, because some things can't be changed. There are some people who have major limitations that are not obvious by looking at them, including problems with executive functioning. It's not as easy as just telling someone to do something differently, and then they do it. Once in a while, this is possible, but definitely not all the time. Story 9. I have a rarely known disease, hidradenitis suppurativa of the scalp, which was diagnosed as dissecting cellulitis for years. I basically develop extremely painful cysts due to stress and my diet. I've had multiple surgeries and had seen well over 20 different doctors for the condition, as the pain can become debilitating. I knew pretty early on that eating fried foods caused pain almost immediately, within minutes, and subsequent cyst formation. I only just realized that the culprit has been the seed oils used in frying, and not the frying itself. I can eat stuff fried in avocado oil, butter, beef tallow, and olive oil with no problem. With this said, seed oils are in almost all processed food, and restaurants use it extensively. Now that I'm reading labels and steering clear of most restaurants, I'm finally in remission. I've been dealing with this horrible condition for the past 20 years. Story 10. People are vacant and look for any excuse to justify their unbearably obnoxious stupidity. Look, this is just the way things are done. Sorry, I just don't understand why we have to print out 45 pages to put in a binder where it will sit for 30 days before being shredded. Couldn't we have just burnt down a forest and cut out the middleman? Story 11. A few years back I was cooking, and somebody reached into a bowl of ingredients just to eat a little bit of whatever it was, and I said, "Get your cotton-picking hands out of there." I then started to think about that phrase and what it might mean. cotton-picking hands. Who picks cotton by hand? And why might they be someone that you are accusing of theft and also denigrating them for picking cotton? Oh. It never occurred to me before that it was racist in origin. Story 12. I grew up in Poland. When a person was arrested on a crime that was publicized, the media will only list their first name and the first initial of last name to protect their identity before conviction. For example, Peter G. My friend thought that all criminals had one-letter last names, and he was surprised the police wouldn't just go all minority report on them and arrest all people with one-letter last names. Story 13. The other day I was walking through the chip section at the store and I saw the Cool Ranch dip shelved with the Cool Ranch Doritos. I asked my husband, that's weird. Is that like ranch dressing flavor plus Cool Ranch Doritos flavor? And then it occurred to me, is Cool Ranch flavor Doritos ranch dressing flavor? I always thought Cool Ranch was just like a marketing thing, like awesome hike or super fun water park. I didn't realize it was ranch like ranch fucking dressing. I am 36. I have consumed Cool Ranch Doritos my entire life. Story 14. My wife watched me push 4 different buttons on the microwave so I could heat my coffee for 30 seconds. She then asked me why I don't just hit the start button, because that automatically microwaves something on high for 30 seconds. Obvious to her, but it blew my freaking mind. Story 15. Late 20s/early 30s, somehow the topic of a Fox window came up, to very confused looks from friends. It took 3 different people almost a minute to realize I meant a faux window, and they explained faux is French for fake, which suddenly made crazy sense to me. I'd only ever read the word in books, and it was probably the only time I've ever used it out loud, and lucky me, it was in front of a group of French-speaking friends. Luckily, part of their example of faux was a faux pas, pronounced faux pas, a term which I'd heard many times and also read many times, but never connected that they were the same term until that very moment. Embarrassing, but hardly the most serious fox pass I've ever done. Story 16. My country has states named New York, New Jersey, New Hampshire, and New Mexico, and I'm aware of the places they're named after. I also happen to live in New England. Why then did it take until I was in my 40s to realize there must be a Zealand or Zealand somewhere, and I had no idea where it was? And it hit me just like that too. I was reading or watching something. New Zealand was mentioned, and my 45-year-old brain just said, hold on a sec, where the fuck is Zealand? I guessed Zealand =Sealand Dutch, but I had to look it up to be sure. Then there's the whole E versus E spelling thing, which made wonder how Denmark may be involved, but eventually I figured it out. Story 17. It took me way too long to realize the phrase was play it by ear and not play it by hear, which makes literally no fucking sense. I have no idea why I thought it was play it by hear, other than Yorkshire folk refusing to enunciate. One day someone did enunciate the phrase, and I nearly shit my pants with realization, since it actually makes so much sense. I knew the phrase meant to wing something, but just assumed it was like a weird nonsense phrase, some kind of slang or something. I'd been saying it wrong for fucking years, and no one corrected me, probably due to the fact that I am also from Yorkshire, and so it just sounded exactly the same as the correct phrase. Story 18. That I have ADHD. My parents told me once that as a kid there were clear signs of ADHD. Even a psychologist recommended Ritalin at that time. I brought it up with my current psychologist, and after testing, I now have the official diagnosis. I don't know if it will change something, but now I have a better understanding of some problems in my life. Edit. Forgot to mention that I'm 34. Story 19. When I was younger, I used to spend a lot of time with my auntie and cousins. One time I fell down the stairs, was consoled by my mum, whilst the rest of the family laughed, got up, and instantly fell down again. This is because I was following my eldest cousin, maybe 13 when I was 6 or so, who was using the stairs by skipping a stair, and I wanted to try it too. I only realized like last year, it's been 20+ years, that I fell twice because I was trying to do it going down the stairs when it only works when going up the stairs. Story 20. My body proportions and all the unconscious things I do for them, LOL. I'm almost 50 and I've only recently discovered that my inseam is average and therefore my height is due to a longer abdomen, and I'm 5'8". But I have small hands and shorter arms, which makes me sound like a clown, but I don't appear disproportionate. So this week, it dawned on me why I braid my hair vertically. I start it near my skull like most people, and then braid it upwards, and I do this because my wingspan is short, so I cannot reach my longer hair properly to braid it straight unless I go upwards. My trainers for Pilates have all asked me about my strange method, and I finally figured it out, lol. Also, my kids always freak out on me because my seat is really close to the steering wheel. And I also realized recently it's because my arms and hands are shorter, so it's hard to maintain a good hold of the steering wheel, even though my legs afford me the ability to move my seat backwards. My arm length makes it necessary to be fairly close to the steering wheel, lol. Story 21. That I need very specific rules maintained by myself so that I do the stuff I need to do in order to function as a human being. I'm not allowed by myself to sit down at the computer after work until I've cleaned the place up for 10 minutes. Weekly choirs have set days for doing them, and I have to do them that day. No matter what, if I literally can't, I have to do them the day before instead, not the day after. I use an app to make myself a functional human being. Story 22. I'm an American who was struggling to eat gluten for years. Bread and pasta made my throat swell, and I'd drive my wife nuts, clearing my throat like Emmett Fitzhume cheating on a foreign service exam proctored by Frank Oz. Doctor tested me for the allergy. Nothing. Tested again? Nope. Switched to organic bread and imported pasta from Italy? No issues at all. Turns out I can handle gluten, but I can't take the GMO Roundup Ready shit us Americans get fed by Big Ag. I go for DiCecco, but really any European pasta organic wheat product is a godsend too. Story 23. Realized this last year. In National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, Clark and Eddie drink eggnog out of Marty Moose glasses. Marty Moose is the mascot of Wally World, the theme park the Griswolds travel to in the first Vacation movie. I'm 44 and have seen both movies many, many times and never made the connection. I always thought they were drinking out of reindeer glasses. Story 24. That I have size 13 feet. I've worn size 11 shoes since my teens. A few years ago, I walked in NYC a lot over the period of 4 days. When I got home, the nails on my big toes turned black. I had purchased some new size 11 sneakers just before the trip, and attributed the pain and discomfort to the shoes being new. Last year, I measured my foot size at the shoe store, only to discover that my feet are a size 13. I've worn size 11 since I was a teen and stopped growing. I hadn't measured my shoe size since then. I'm almost 60. Now I buy size 13 and nothing less. My right toenail never did recover properly. Story 25. There's no such thing as friends. There's people that see you as valuable to keep around and fun to party with, but at the end of the day, it's only you and your thoughts. Learn to master that first through meditation, plant medicines, or whatever brings you to that place of peace. Let the world go and dwell within. Master your emotions and thoughts, then you control your reality, literally. Story 26. I didn't just realize this, but it took a long, long time to understand the riddle. What? Black, white, and red? Read? All over? A newspaper. Young me didn't understand homonyms, so I didn't understand that they didn't mean the color, but the action of reading. And young me had seen the newspaper before, and yes, the color red is present, so logically it made sense. Never thought to break it down until well into adulthood. It hit me that the joke of the riddle is the homonym deceiving you. Story 27. I was 23 when I learned how to tie my shoes. My mom was watching me and I was doing bunny ears, then tying them in a knot. She asked me why I was doing it the kid way. I said, "What the fuck are you talking about?" She replies, "I think I forgot to teach you how you're actually supposed to tie your shoes." It rattled my world because my laces had routinely come undone my entire life. I thought that was just the slippery nature of the shoelace. I looked at all the shoes I had after that and realized almost none of them had laces. I preferred wearing boots and sandals for that very reason.